what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Alan Jackson with you here, along with Chris Fry. We of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival coming up September 20th through the 29th. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit later, but we've got some things to get to first before we plug our own festival, and that is actually having this show. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm curious about what your take is on the movie that we're going to review today.
All right. Well, curious is a good word to put it, because I am also equally curious. We are talking about the film Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. We will be reviewing that film in just a moment. Of course, the latest from director Tim Burton, starring, of course, Michael Keaton as the eponymous Beetlejuice, and Winona Ryder and many others. We'll be reviewing that film, kind of an eagerly anticipated film that we've been looking forward to, but we've also had a lot of questions about, so we'll see how those questions are answered in a moment. After that review of Beetlejuice, though, we will be dipping our toes into a couple of other films that will be released in the next few months through the means of trailers, watching some of the trailers of a couple films and talking about these upcoming releases and some of our gauging our interest levels and what we're seeing in the films being teased. And then we also are going to end the show with one of Chris Fry's awesome, highly anticipated, eagerly waited recommendations. Because I'm building it up a lot.
Overhyping
I build it up a lot.
Like overhyping Beetlejuice.
Well, we are about whether or not we under or overhype. We are learning there is a science to the idea of getting over or under hyped for a film. It does have an impact on your viewing. But we know you're already going to recommend this film at the end of the show. So I can't really overhype it. I'm just building up the fact that, we are all waiting to hear what are you going to recommend for us.
Fair enough.
So we'll be doing that at the end of the show. So you got to stick around for that. But before we get to any of that, the trailers or the recommendation, we do have a review to give, and it is of Beetlejuice.
Can't believe Grandpa's dead.
Death is hard.
Yeah, sometimes I think life is harder.
When I was a teenager, a trickster demon terrorized our entire family and tried to force me to marry him. I believed he was gone forever until you found this in the attic.
Ew. Who's Beetlejuice?
Don't ever say that name.
Beetlejuice.
No, Astrid! I am serious! If you say his name 3 times, he will appear.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
Chris, for many people back in the 80s, I know Pee-wee's Big Adventure was Tim Burton's kind of first big movie.
Right.
But for a lot of people, Beetlejuice was the one that kind of put him on the map. I mean, it gave him a style. It gave him a flair. It gave him a kind of a look to a film that we kind of grew to admire. It all kind of started, from my mind anyway. Yeah, Pee-wee's terribly creative, but Beetlejuice really played into who Tim Burton was as a filmmaker. So it kind of also set a little bit of a standard for his work, I think, for decades after that. A lot of things are always being compared to this period of Beetlejuice and then him doing the original Batman movie and then maybe a couple others. Everything always seemed to be kind of compared back to that. So the fact that Tim Burton has now gone back, and has it really, is it 30 years? What's the time frame?
35?
35 years.
Like that, yeah.
Gone back 35 years to make a sequel of Beetlejuice. Mm-hmm. Called Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which I think is a very clever title for this. And this is fraught with questions. We've been asking questions about this film for a good while. We're both anticipating it. We're eager to see it. we're also maybe a little concerned. Tim Burton maybe hasn't been quite at the top of his game in recent years. We haven't been as enamored with a lot of his more recent films. And returning to the property that kind of really got the ball rolling for him. And also, a star turning. Michael Keaton was already a star, but it just took Michael Keaton and just elevated him even further when this original came out. It's a risky proposition, but I will say, and you're going to roll your eyes when I say this, Chris, but we had this happen with Top Gun Maverick. Same kind of situation. It was a beloved film from the 80s, big hit.
By some.
And I think people could say the same about Beetlejuice.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Driven primarily by a star-making performance or a really big performance that kind of got recognized for many decades. And it comes back 30 some years later and tries to rekindle that same energy and that same sense of enjoyment at the movie theater. So we can compare how these did compared to Top Gun Maverick, a little bit later. But more importantly, Chris, I know I'm building this up. I'm making this a really long introduction just to get to the point of saying, what did you like about Beetlejuice? I'll hit the plot in a minute. I don't really think people need to hear a synopsis of the plot.
People can probably guess. A little bit. It's like...
Well, okay, finally, just throw it out there.
Sure.
After a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family, which was the original family from the film Beetlejuice, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and Jeffrey Jones, return home to Winter River, still haunted by Beetlejuice, the demon that lives in the afterworld, but connected through their house. Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter, Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. All right. So some of the original characters are back.
Yes.
Some of the original locations are back. Chris, how did Beetlejuice work for you? I just want to know what your emotion was when you walked out of the theater. Like, what were you feeling? Were you feeling disappointment? Were you feeling sadness? Were you feeling elation? Were you feeling satisfaction? And where did you fall when you walked out of the theater?
Okay, so if we're going to take it at that tack, then I have to jump to the ending and how the ending left me.
Okay.
And without, there again, we all, some people are like, oh, just go ahead and spoil it. We've already seen the movie. Well, I can't guarantee that the people listening to this have seen the movie. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say the ending, I was a little worried. Because I thought things were getting tied up in a very neat bow, but then Burton made sure it was just the right amount of askew at the end, maybe a little jagged around the edges of the bow, the ribbon that was used. I was like, okay, nope, that's cool. So, I walked out happy that I'd seen it. It's tough with sequels, especially one that is this spaced out from the original. I think the line I kept saying we would talk about, we watched the trailer here and we talked about it here on the show, was that, well, if Tim Burton has waited this long to do it and he's got the cast coming back, then surely it's not just going to be purely, and I think he's even said, but who wouldn't say this on a press tour? No, this wasn't a money grab. This wasn't, I wasn't doing this to just make a lot of money. But we've seen that from this past weekend, I think it has made money. So that's good for him and for, everybody involved, the investors. I still like the first film better. However, this film wasn't, I felt, well, let me talk about the things I liked before, because there's one major thing that kind of holds me back from really loving the film. I liked it. Okay. I wasn't disappointed. I don't think it was a pure money grab. And the pluses for me, and a lot of it's probably nostalgia, like you mentioned, came out in 88. So I was 14 when I went to go see it. And this was, as you mentioned, I don't think I saw the original Pee-wee movie until after the Beetlejuice movie. Cause I wasn't one of those that plopped down in front of the TV and watched the Saturday morning cartoon.
And the movie wasn't a big hit in the theaters. And not like tons of people went to go see it in the theaters. It became more of a cult classic afterwards. And again, that's why I say Beetlejuice was kind of the one where it's like,
sure,
oh, there's this dude, Tim Burton, who makes movies and look how cool this is. Anyway.
And this was the first to really get into the kind of, at the time, the sensibility of the macabre sense of humor and like the real kind of quirky, just sense of humor.
Dark, gothic.
Way things look.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So this was the first one to really do that for me and kind of make me aware that that's something that appealed to me. So right off the bat, the pluses of having the gang back together. You mentioned Keaton, Ryder, O'Hara, Burton, of course, is director. Danny, and I assumed but wasn't totally aware that the music was going to be done by Danny Elfman. But when I saw that name come on the screen, I got a huge grin on my face. Just because it's like, yes, this is kind of cool. The cast clearly is having a ball. At least I think they are. And I will say, I think back when we discussed the trailer, I talked about having the original cast come back, and you said, well, there is one exception. And I think that's I thought it was kind of like a clever workaround, maybe was overdone just a little bit. But Jeffrey Jones did not return. Well, his character, as you mentioned, returned, but the actor himself did not return because he's run into some troubled times and is kind of a problematic figure in Hollywood. So they sidestepped that, I think, very creatively. But then I thought maybe they maybe overused it just a tad, just a tad. But it was still very cleverly done. And everybody knows you've seen it in the trailer and you saw it in the first film, the use of sandworms and that being like stop motion. That's something that, Tim Burton has always loved. So you have that in this film as well, but you have a stop motion sequence explaining what happened to Mr. Dietz. And I thought that, and I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. Okay. And I liked it. I thought it was clever and all that. So before I get into my misgiving, I'd like to hear what you thought.
I had such a good time with this. I loved it. I thought it was great. I have misgivings as well, but they're not enough to outweigh my enjoyment.
Oh yeah, I'm still giving a positive review to the film.
I went in worried.
Okay.
I really did. I went in very, very pessimistic, assuming that it was just going to be, let's rehash everything from the first one and that's it. And, and that Burton might have lost some of his edge.
No,
and I don't think he did. I actually think
edge.
This film was edgier than the original. I actually think there were more surprising elements or choices made that I'm like, whoa, okay, this is going there. Well, and it was cool. So I loved it.
What's crazy, just real quick, the original movie was PG.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising considering what happens in it. It came out in 1988. So, but the original movie was PG, but there's a lot of like sexual humor and all this kind of stuff. And there's the macabre humor. This film is PG-13. And I noticed there was one F-bomb and there was another F-bomb that curiously was covered up, I think. Or did he actually get to say it? No, but the first time
there were two.
You heard it,
there
the
were
second
two
time
visible,
it was a little,
two audible ones and one bleeped out. But it was, and then
I wonder if it was like, we're going to push it as far as we can. They like, you can get an R, but you got to take out one of the, and they're like, okay. And so
they pushed, and also the gore and violence on it.
Oh yeah.
Was, I loved it, but it was edgy. I was surprised. I was surprised.
There's some staple gunning that goes on that I was like, oh, and it doesn't just touch it. No, it like goes a whole sequence of staple gunning.
Certain character, not going to spoil it, a certain character that you might have alluded to is a half-eaten person halfway through through most of the movie. And it's pretty graphic. Yes. And, there's a scene in the waiting room with in the afterlife waiting room where cats are eating from their owner, sitting on the lap. It was some pretty edgy stuff. And again, I loved it, but I'm like, wow, they're pushing it and they're going for fun with this. And I tell you, it was a good warm feeling. When the film first started, again, my concerns were high.
Sure.
And we can just say we ease into the overview shot of the town, just like in the original.
He's famous for is the flying.
And
shots.
my initial thoughts were, okay, are we just doing shot for shot? Okay, I'm a little concerned. And then it kind of weaved and took a little angle. And then I think once we saw Lydia Dietz in her first shot, and I'm realizing, oh, okay, we're going a little different here. All right, I get it. This is going to be fun. Right away, I'm kind of sold. Actually, that whole talk show motif at the beginning, I think set the mood for me perfectly. It was and it was funny.
Yeah.
And it was good, and it was kind of giving us an insight to where the story was going to go. And I'm like, I felt comfortable right away after that opening scene, and it just never left me. So I think Michael Keaton, look, if you really want to get critical, was Michael Keaton as on top of his game as maybe he was in the original? He's maybe a step or two down, but that's to be expected. And I mean, I think to try to match the performance from the first movie would have been near impossible or challenging for any actor. But he was really good and really close. So Catherine O'Hara, I thought was amazing. I thought her actual depiction of Delia was maybe even better than the original. I actually liked her character more this time. She had more to do, and I think she had some better lines, and I think she knows this character. Catherine O'Hara knows this character so well, and had every line just right, and it was so entertaining. Yeah.
I think it's hard to say. I mean, in the original, but I think in the original film, Beetlejuice was the central character. I mean, you had the other ones, but he was like the ones whereas in this film, I think like they tried to, and I understand making it different. The Dietz family took much more of like a lot of spotlight. Like you have Winona Ryder's Lydia, you have Delia, you have Astrid. And I think they spread it out a little more so that he wasn't as
well. I got into a conversation last night with somebody about this afterwards, and I disagree a little bit. I actually think Beetlejuice in the original movie was an even more minor character than we realize. And I think you look back in the film and you think, okay, yeah, he's the main one. No, I mean, it was the Maitlands. I mean, we followed the Maitlands for a good 75% of that movie. That was Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin.
Right.
Beetlejuice was a much more of a supporting character. I actually think he got a little more time in this one. But you are right that they spread out the other supporting characters. I mean, we did have a pretty big cast. We had a bigger cast in this movie than we did in the original. That would probably be my one misgiving, and I don't know if that's going to be where you're going with it or not. I know there's probably a temptation after 35 years to just put in every good idea they had into this movie. I felt like the film might have been a little overstuffed with plot lines and characters, that some of them ended very unceremoniously. It was like you build up a subplot throughout the film. At one point, there's like 5 different subplots going on in the late part of the film. I enjoyed all of them. I was interested in all of the subplots, but about 2 of them kind of just ended like very quickly. And it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're done with that storyline. It felt like there was a lot going on at the end that maybe could have been a little sharper focused, but again, it did not impact my enjoyment of the film. It's just, that's the one thing I walked away wishing there were 1 or 2 of those subplots that we could have done a little more with, or not have done them at all. So that's really my only misgiving with the film. Otherwise, I thought it was great. What was your misgiving? Let's go ahead and talk about the concerns you had.
So it is along the same lines. What my misgiving was the relationship pairs, and actually, I guess in one, it's a relationship trio. Lydia and her partner in the TV show, Rory, played by Justin Theroux, and then eventually her husband, the father of Astrid, who's deceased. Okay, so that's one pair, or one that they're a trio. Okay, the next one is Astrid and Jeremy. Okay, and then Astrid's the daughter of Lydia, and Jeremy is a fellow that she meets that she actually develops a relationship with, and she, just like Lydia in the first movie, is very dark, brooding, standoffish. You can see why they chose Jenna Ortega to play Astrid because of her work with Wednesday with Tim Burton. It's like, yeah, she already knows what she's doing. She's got this. Okay, so that's the second group. And then we have Beetlejuice and a former wife. I think he actually did say at one point he married her, named Dolores. Okay, so you have all of those things in there. And I felt like 1 or maybe 2 of them could have been dumped. Yeah. Well, and then it would have worked. And the one that I would stress was the most interesting to me was Astrid and Jeremy.
Yes.
And the reason why was because Jeremy was able to reflect something, without getting into spoilers or anything. Jeremy was able to reflect some plot threads from the first film, but kind of take them and turn them a little bit in a way. And that was kind of surprising to me. And I thought the guy who played Jeremy, Arthur Conti, who I am completely unfamiliar with, I think this may be his first big role.
First thing I recognize him in, yeah.
I thought he was great. And he didn't, to me, he was able, which, we talked about Jenna Ortega, it was like they were equally matched. And like, he didn't seem like out of place, like, oh yeah, here's this nobody in this film with all these big names that were in the first movie. Nope. He was able to do it. And I really, really liked that. And I wish there could have been more put into that, because the other two, the Beetlejuice Dolores, throwaway, other than giving you some netherworld stuff going on.
Well,
there wasn't really anything there for me. And the Lydia and Rory thing, I kind of feel like where that's going anyway.
Well,
and so there wasn't anything interesting.
The Lydia and Rory, and that's a little bit of our Delia and Ortho dynamic from the original film. A little bit of that idea of like two people that are kind of, there's some ulterior motives going on between people. I mean, it's just, it's a little bit of that. I thought that was a fun subplot, just as so it didn't take up too much time. I thought it was fun. I thought Justin Theroux was really great.
He was.
He was good.
Yeah, he was good.
I agree with you. I was the most fascinated or interested in the Astrid and Jeremy storyline. Happy that even though I think a reveal is telegraphed very, very early and very easy, but yet the film still managed to surprise me with something in it on a second beat.
Okay.
That was nice because I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what this is. It's like, oh, actually, no, this is actually more interesting than I thought.
There's one thing you're like, okay, but then it's like, it goes further. And that was with me. I was like, and that's what made me, there was such potential there. I'm like, oh, wow. And I wanted to just give itself over to that.
And that was one of those subplots I told you that I felt like just kind of ended very unceremoniously. It's like, it was funny the way it ended, but it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that we're done with that. And there was more that could have been mined there, I thought. But anyway, I'm with you on that. The Beetlejuice and his former ex-wife, played by Monica Bellucci, I thought really had great potential. And there is, I will say that subplot is justified, if nothing else, for the origin story that we get, which I thought was absolutely hilarious and so well done.
I had completely forgotten about that, and I'm glad you reminded me. So, you do get an origin story, which is told in black and white and in Spanish. With Michael Keaton supposedly, or Beetlejuice delivering it, the narration is
done as a very kind of old style film. It was just
like a horror film.
It was so weird, but it was cool.
And it was total Tim Burton.
Oh yeah.
I will agree. Like, I was really shocked that happened, and that was a complete surprise to me.
Yeah.
But I'll give you that. It made Dolores worth it just for that backstory, because you're like, do what?
But her story was also another one that by the time we got to the end of it, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's done. And, both of them felt like that was a little wasted opportunity in both of them. Yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I definitely would have gone with the Astrid and Jeremy. It was definitely more interesting.
Sure.
But both could have been used. The only one that I still found incredibly intriguing, but I do feel like maybe might have taken up more time than it needed when we had these other two subplots.
Talking about Willem Dafoe?
Yeah. I love the concept.
Yep.
I loved his character, and it was funny. It was very funny, but at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, well, in a movie that I felt like was already had a lot going on, it just was a distraction from these other more interesting subplots where it's basically just playing up a funny motif throughout the film and having fun with it. And it was really funny, but it didn't really add anything to the film at the end of the day.
So here's my thing. Here's my, Alan and Chris fixing the movies. Mm-hmm. So Beetlejuice. Make the film better by just doing Astrid and Jeremy and drop Lydia and Rory and Beetlejuice and Dolores. I think the movie would be much better. Or drop Lydia and Rory storyline, drop Astrid and Jeremy, keep Beetlejuice and Dolores, and beef up the William Dafoe character, because he is kind of plays Wolf Jackson, who's this netherworld. He thinks of himself, but he's actually just an actor, but thinks of himself as like a private eye, like police chief type guy who's solving all these like crimes. So he is trying to track down Dolores, who is known to be this baddie. So beef up both of those, and then maybe you'd have, it would be more like,
I think any of those
pleasing
combinations
and-
could have helped make a stronger film.
Right.
Again, luckily I enjoyed all the elements. So it's like, all right, I know there's a lot going on, and some of these storylines didn't really go anywhere. Some of them didn't end the way I would hope they would. However, I still enjoyed them all. So it's like, I can't fault the film too much. It's almost like they just got so excited about wanting to do these things. It's like, how do we get all this great stuff into this movie? Okay, well, let's try it. And some things had to be sacrificed because of it, unfortunately. So
I feel like for me, if you can believe the press tour hype about I didn't do it for money, and he says like this, I kind of returned what made me love making movies in the first place. Cause and I feel like I can see his joy in getting to do weird stuff. And especially, did you like the ending as much as I did?
I did.
Okay. And so I hope that whatever he does next, which, he said supposedly on record, he's not into making Beetlejuice 3, but I hope the next film he does will be something completely original and will still be as good or better than this, because it won't be a sequel.
Right.
Because I'm hoping he kind of has gotten his mojo back.
I would hope so too. I'll make a couple other quick little points just as we're getting ready to wrap this up. I mean, it sounds like we're definitely on the same page with this.
One of the things I want you to tell me, because I have one.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me your like favorite moment from the film.
Oh gosh.
So tell me the other things first, and then maybe you can come back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about a favorite moment because there's just so many moments that I thought were great. I will say I thoroughly enjoyed and was surprised by, and also enjoyed. I'm just going to say Baby Beetlejuice.
Okay. That was definitely a surprise.
And a little on the edgier side too. I kind of where that went.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
Thought that was very good. I think a great Tim Burton touch was Dolores, the way that she sucked the soul out of people and kind of the visual appearance of that. Just totally Tim Burton. I'm like, yep, that's what we've been missing for the last 20 years is this kind of thing. And that was great.
Yeah, her assembly was kind of echoing Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, it felt like it was the most Tim Burton-y movie he's made in a while. So
probably the moment I probably laughed the most, which is, I mean, I don't think anybody else is going to call this out, but they do a little fan service by bringing back all the shrunken head people.
Main one being Bob.
Bob being interrogated by Willem Dafoe, I just thought was hysterical. I don't know why. I still haven't quite figured out what made me laugh so much about that, but I don't know. I think Tim Burton too just loved the visual image of these bug eyes on the little shrunken head guy, and that can't talk, and it's just there's something funny about that. And he obviously had some fun because Bob got a lot of screen time.
Bob did get a lot of screen time.
So no, those are kind of some of more of my standout moments. I think the Richard Marx call out.
See, now you've hit my favorites.
Okay.
See, I won't go into detail, but yes, my favorite moment was a performance of a Richard Marx song.
No,
and actually, my wife, who saw the film with me, she could not stop laughing about like that. Like the film continued on, we theater laughed, and she just kept like laughing about it.
In general, they did so much with Beetlejuice having different voices that was it worked. There's a whole sequence where he's telling the flashback and he just slips into a Spanish dialect, and it was it was so well done. It was so funny. You got the Richard Marx bit, which it's just funny when it happens.
Yes,
but then even the entire they echo there's a wedding, which I have heard some people, I read reviews last night, and I shouldn't have done that. Luckily, I didn't read them before I went to go see it. Okay. I saw afterwards. I'm like, do people feel the same way I do? And a lot of people that don't. One of the big issues is, they're just hitting the same beats late in the film. There's another wedding. There's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't care. I thought it was great. The fact that the entire wedding is set to a song that I don't even know if I've ever heard.
So it isn't. I
It's
feel
a real
like
song.
It is a real
it's
song.
a Donna Summer song, I
Okay.
think. And it's like this really odd song,
Yeah.
but it's like the entire closing is choreographed to that with the character singing. And I'm like, all right, this is really weird, but this is great. So,
It
you
was
know.
really weird, and that was another moment where, Beetlejuice acknowledges it when he's like, "Oh, gotta love a dream sequence," and it keeps going, and you're like, "Okay," but yeah, Tim Burton's like, "I am doing this. This is something I want to do."
Yeah.
And the fact that I had a feeling this song was, and I think I did look in the credits, and I was like, "Okay, so it is an actual song." But it is a weird song. I actually want to go back and listen to just
I
the
know.
song without
Yeah.
this, because I'm like, all the stuff that, but yeah, it's like he is doing what he wants to do. He is clearly having a ball doing this. Michael Keaton seemed to be having fun, because that was the most Beetlejuice screen time I think you get
Yes.
is that one. And yeah, it was weird. And I could see the complaint like, oh, you're doing a wedding scene, but like, it's just so different.
The idea of the
and
wedding,
odd.
I mean, look, if you really want to get specific about it, in the plot, I mean, the whole idea of a wedding is the way a demon dead character can kind of come back is you got to get married. So that's becomes some kind of the thread. Beetlejuice wants to get married because if he can get married, he gets to free himself.
Right.
So that's the whole point in the first movie, and it's still there in the second movie. And I'm fine with that. I mean, it makes sense. It wasn't done just for the heck of it. It was like, no, there's an actual plot reason to need to have another wedding.
Right.
And they couched it into an already existing wedding that was planned, and I don't know. It worked for me. I had fun with it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, and there was enough surprises in the film too, with some character choice decisions. One main character, something kind of transpires late in the film, which might have been a little bit of an overstopped plot point, but
I know what you're referring to. A character that I was not. Yes, something happens to a major character. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Kind of surprised by that.
There was that. There was the whole Jeffrey Jones thing, the way that was handled, which was a real surprise. I thought a little daring, a little edgy to do, but interesting the way they did it. The storyline with
Astrid and
Jeremy. Interesting choices being made there too. I mean, the film was edgy, and the film made some daring choices, which I was so happy for, because I was so afraid it was going to play it safe and just, give the fans what they want. And yeah, there is a lot of fan service here, but none of the fan service bothered me. None of the fan service felt, what's the word? Cliche, and felt like, crammed in just for the sake of doing it. There's only one moment I felt like was fan service that did not make any sense.
What's that?
The choir that sang during a funeral scene.
Oh,
no, it's great.
Okay.
But why are they playing that song at his funeral? That wasn't his song.
No, there's no reason.
I know.
But I didn't. That did not, but because I thought
that was the only moment I'm just like, oh, that's right. He liked that song. I'm like, no, wait a minute. No, that wasn't his song. That was the Maitland song. Why are they playing it there? I'm like, anyway, that's the only moment I'm like, okay, yeah. So that's like just some pure fan service just played in there. So
I have not watched the original in a while. I'm actually and I thought about watching it.
Wait a minute. Maybe. I know the Maitlands liked that song, and they were playing that song at the end of Beetlejuice, the first one, for Lydia. They really liked the Harry Belafonte song. No, yeah.
It's Shake Sonora at the end of
that's at the end, but they were playing Harry Belafonte like throughout the movie upstairs. But I'm actually wondering now if maybe Mr. Dietz was also playing it. I need to go back and see it.
I purposely didn't watch the original before this one. I wanted to, but anyway, I was like, no, because I think that's going to get my expectations up too high. So now I would be curious to go back and see it, because all I knew was, the song that the choir singing, that was a song from the first movie, and I thought it was a clever way to
if I go back and find out that Mr. Dietz actually had been playing that song at one point in the scene, because there's a scene where he's in his den kind of by himself. He seems to be having a good time. I remember in the original. If he was playing that song, then my criticism is rescinded. I'm like, that's fine. That was his song.
Okay.
But otherwise, it was the Maitland song. There was no connection to him. That's what I'm standing by. That's my only fan service gripe with the film. Everything else I felt like was at least played in a fun, good spirit. And yeah, you could sit here and say, oh, it's just a callback to the original. Yeah, it is. But it was done in such a fun way and in a loving way that I was okay with it.
Well, and let's say this too, like, yeah, it was fun way, loving way, but kind of a clever, it wasn't just like, at funerals, graveside services,
Right.
you have song. So it was not just put in there. You didn't have characters running around singing it exactly like, so at least it was slightly different. And
right.
I'll say overall, I like the movie. I think you may have liked it a little more than me.
Maybe
But
so.
I will say, always a good sign for me if I walk out of the theater, I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see that again.
I was where I was.
I do want to see
it
this
again.
again. And I imagine some of the like struggles about too many plot lines will fall away and I'll just appreciate it.
Yeah.
So.
Only last note, I just saw in my notes, I skipped over it just real quick. Another kind of daring, surprising choice that I'm surprised they went with, but I like that they did. I'm just going to say the Soul Train.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That totally worked for me. And
I mean,
it's a joke.
Yeah.
But then there's a callback to it, but so I didn't feel like they overplayed that. It worked for me.
It was handled well. It was a surprising choice.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
I think it worked.
Sure.
I think it was reverent and I think it was done in good spirit. So yes.
I don't think it was. Yeah. I think it was done in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see some people trying to take some issue with it, but I thought it was all done in good taste. Felt like in the film. So anyway, That's it. That's all I'm gonna say with that.
Okay.
I really did enjoy the film, and like you said, I'm kind of really anxiously wanting to see it again. I come home from these movies. A lot of times I go to these movies by myself because I'm seeing them late at night or I'm seeing them after work, and this was, my wife always asks me when I come home, like, well, how was the movie? And I have to give her like a 1-sentence review, like, it was okay, or it could have been better, or I liked some parts of it. This one I actually came back and I'm like, oh yeah, I really like this film. So I'm ready to go see it again. So, all right. Well, we might be in the minority on this one, Chris. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I did do a little peeking late last night just to see. There's a lot of disappointment floating out there with some critics, and but I'm here to say me personally, I don't feel like it's warranted. I thought it was great. Had a good time.
Yeah, I maybe slightly a little less enthusiastic, but yeah, I think my expectations had been set low enough.
Yeah,
that I had a good time, and yeah, I'm
good,
happy.
All right, well, that is Beetlejuice. Whew, so glad to hear because honestly, been worried about this one for a while. Really expected to come out and just feel like it might have been a stinker and been disappointed. So happy to know, at least for us personally, it worked. So, all right. Well, that is playing in theaters. As Chris alluded to, it did make some pretty good money first opening weekend. So it will be around for a little while, but we are both recommending Beetlejuice to check out, especially if you're a fan of the original. I think, there's absolutely, this one checks the boxes for you. So, okay, Chris, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, we've got a couple of trailers for some new films that will be released soon that we want to talk about. And we have your recommendation for the episode. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films right here on the Mesh.tv. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Chris and I had our positive review of Beetlejuice. So, Chris, we don't think there will be a Beetlejuice. For two reasons. One, I don't think they're going to do a third one. Two, to say the name of the film means you have to say the name 3 times, which means every time you call it out.
Right, and if he doesn't, Michael Keaton doesn't dress in the costume and run around for the rest of his life, then
it's kind of pointless. Right. Okay. So I think we feel pretty good that there's probably not going to be a third one. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about some new films coming out soon. I don't think we've talked about either of these. Well, no, I take it back. I think you have mentioned one of these films, but we're going to see the trailer for it. The other one, I don't think we've talked about yet, or at least we have. If we have, I don't recall it. But anyway, 2 trailers. Let's get into the first one. This is for a film that is from writer-director Kyle Mooney, former Saturday Night Live performer. He also made the film Brigsby Bear. Did he direct that or no? I don't think he directed that. He was just in it.
Yeah, and that's where because I fell off the Saturday Night Live bandwagon a while ago. So I don't think I was really familiar with him as a Saturday Night Live cast member, but I saw Brigsby Bear and I really liked it, kind of how it was odd.
He wrote Brigsby Bear and starred in it, but not directing it. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's look, I'm a Saturday Night Live super fan. Know all the performers. Kyle Mooney had his moments on the show. I thought there were moments when they let him write his material and kind of get to go just as far out there as he wanted to go. It was good.
Okay.
So this being a film he wrote and directed, it's starring Rachel Zegler, Julian Dennison, and Alicia Silverstone. The film's title is Y2K. And I haven't seen the trailer. Actually, I don't know anything about the film other than I know you just had mentioned it a couple weeks ago as being a trailer out there.
It's another A24 joint.
There you go. I do see the A24 label on the trailer right now. So let's take a look at this trailer for the film Y2K. I'm assuming it's a comedy.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. Again, I know nothing about it, so
Sure.
let's check it out, and we'll catch up on it on the backside and see what we think here.
Oh, Lord Sticky.
Sire.
Any lucky lady gonna get the midnight kiss?
Just talk to her, dude.
What's up, Laura?
We're actually going to this New Year's thing. It's going to be a total shit show.
Oh.
See ya.
It's 1999, and we getting drunk.
In a few hours, you have an excuse to kiss the girl of your dreams. Open up. Take us away. It's so smooth.
So that was the trailer for Y2K. All right, so I was right. Comedy, but also went a little apocalyptic, action-y, violent-y.
It's what if the Y2K bug had been everything that everybody feared?
Right.
So that's the premise for the entire movie.
I mean, it reminds me right away of that film, This Is the End.
Yes. Which
Very
I was
much.
which I was not a fan of.
You were not. I
had
liked.
some funny parts to it, but overall was not a fan.
I liked it. Similar premise. You get, it's a comedy, but you put people in a very, apocalyptic situation, post-apocalyptic situation, combining action, violence, and comedy. It looks okay. I mean, I don't know. Kyle Mooney directing it and writing it at least makes me think it's going to be out there. It's going to be unique. I do like Rachel Zegler. Mm-hmm. Kind of interesting to see her play a part we're not used to seeing her play. Like, I think we've only seen her she was obviously West Side Story. She's going to be the new Snow White in the Snow White Disney movie. But it's kind of nice to see her playing a quote normal pure person, like getting to play a more casual person.
Sure.
So I'm excited to see that. Julian Dennison, I like quite a bit. I haven't seen him in anything since Deadpool 2. So he's like a teenager now, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's good to see.
And we liked him in Hunt for Wilder People, where he kind of got his big
that's
start.
great. Yeah, so good. All right, no, I'm intrigued, and obviously, I mean, I know we say this, but having the A24 studio stamp on it means all right. There's at least, I feel like, going to be some quality here to kind of explore. So,
and if anything, the thing I worry about is maybe we saw too much with the trailer, because with a comedy, that's where you really have to work. Like we worried with Beetlejuice. It's like, okay, did they take all the funny moments, they slapped them together? And yeah, for a minute and a half, it looks amazing. But hopefully there's enough kind of quirky, weird stuff that Kyle Mooney still has planned for us. I'm interested in it. I think I'll give it a shot when it comes out.
Yeah. All right.
And it's before the end of the year, I believe.
Yeah, that comes out, I don't know. December 6th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting holiday movie, maybe. But
there you go. December 6th.
Okay.
Okay. Let me ease into our second and final trailer.
Okay. You have seen this one.
I have seen this trailer.
See, that was fair because I'd seen Y2K. Okay. You had not. You've seen this trailer. I have not.
Amy Adams has a new movie coming out that
played at Telluride or
Toronto.
Toronto. Okay.
Played Toronto. Supposedly got one of those big standing ovations. Sure. I don't know how many minutes, but it got more minutes than Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Which don't know if that Beetlejuice had a 3-minute ovation, which I thought was, if you're going to be one of these people that superficially are going to base a film on how long the ovation is, which I think is terribly stupid, but whatever. It's something to talk about.
Right.
Beetlejuice had 3 minutes, but by film festival standards, pretty short. So a little disappointed in the audience there in that film.
You would have like done your arms like, come on, guys.
Come on, people. Let's keep this going for at least 7 or 8. This is a film called Night Bitch.
Okay.
It is written and directed by Mariella Heller, whose last film was the Mr. Rogers movie that with Tom Hanks in it.
Okay.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yes. I always have trouble keeping that and the Morgan Neville documentary separate because they were, I think, came out somewhat close to each other. But yes, and I liked both of them.
No, yeah, it was great. Mariella Heller. She also directed Can You Ever Forgive Me? That had Melissa McCarthy in it back in 2018. Yeah, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was 2019. She directed A Diary of a Teenage Girl back in 2015.
Okay.
So that's been kind of her recent films. And so this film starring Amy Adams. Amy Adams is getting a lot of acclaim for this performance.
Okay.
Based on a book, based on a novel by Rachel Yoder. And I'm just going to play the trailer.
Okay.
And let's just kind of see where it goes with this. So this is the trailer for Night Bitch, which I have fun saying.
Yeah.
All right.
He's super cute. Do you just love getting to be home with them all the time? Yeah, I do. I love it.
You're an artist, right?
Well, I used to be.
Wow.
But that feels like a lifetime ago. So
Yeah,
totally.
definitely. We get it.
I used to be a stripper.
The before times.
Yes. Nobody in this family can clean their own butts.
No. Oh, that's okay.
If you wake him up, I will rip your throat out.
Okay, for what it's worth. I would kill to stay home with him every day.
All right, so that is the trailer for Night Bitch. That is also coming out December. Chris, you have not seen this trailer yet. Your initial thoughts on what you saw?
I am mad at you for making me watch that trailer.
Oh.
Because, as we just mentioned with Y2K, I think this movie looks amazing. I wish I hadn't known it. I wish I hadn't known anything about it. And it just looks right up my this. When I think of what do I like as film?
Mm-hmm.
I like things that are a little odd, that are quirky, that wouldn't normally you think, how in the world did this thing get made? Looking at this trailer, I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know. I didn't pay enough attention to the credits. I don't know if Amy Adams is an executive producer. I don't know. Yeah, Marielle Heller, she's done some things, but nothing that I would think would give her this much leeway. I'm glad she has it, but I'm like, because it looks well made, it looks expensive, it looks amazing. Like I'm just in awe because I'm just like, yeah, I don't know that people are going to like this thing, but I dig it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Amy Adams is a producer. So
okay, well there we go.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. It looks, and the other thing that I like is when something, believe it or not, it kind of reminds me a little bit of another filmmaking group, the Daniels, who did Swiss Army Man and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Those two films, they're just like crazy, just all over the place, but they have a heart,
right.
And there's something there. But that's what's amazing to me. Instead of just putting out a feel-good story or something like that, which there are places for those, and I do like some of them, but this is just coming about telling an empowering story in a weird way.
Yeah.
And that's what appeals to me, because instead of just like packaging something like a Disney would do with a PG film about somebody, discovering who they are. No, this is something different. And as an adult, this is obviously not a children's movie. It works for me because it speaks to me on that kind of level. So I'm not mad at Alan, but I am excited for the film.
No, I am too. I had heard about the film. I'd read a little bit about it. I saw the trailer. I'm like, nope, I'm bored. We're ready to do this. That will be coming out December 6th.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. It did get picked up. I mean, it's got a distribution plan. It's going to be in theaters. So it's, yes. I think we got some good films coming up the next few months here to dig into. Me enjoying Beetlejuice as much as I did has now got me set for the rest of the season. Like, yeah, all right, there's some good stuff coming. Okay. All right, Chris, Well, that is our trailer bit. We do like to kind of wrap up our show when we have one available, in which we do this particular episode, a recommendation from you of a film that you think we ought to check out or spend some time with. We used to do joint recommendations, but honestly, I fell behind. I fell way short, and I don't have the wherewithal to give good recommendations anymore. Chris, however, does. And so I leave this to Chris, and he normally steers us right. Unfortunately, the only problem is it creates a giant list for me of films to catch up with that I will never probably get to see. So I get to live vicariously through you and hearing about these films. So Chris, tell us what your recommendation is for this week's episode.
So I'm going to recommend a film that actually came out in 2024, but it is available on Paramount Plus, which is actually how I caught up with it. I did not get to see it in the theater. Probably would have been better in the theater, I will say. It is a sequel, which is kind of surprising. Not that I don't recommend sequels, but in general, this is the third one as well. So it is A Quiet Place Day One. So I think we reviewed both A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2, maybe. I can't remember. I think the second. Remember. But I remember when this came out, I was like, Alan? And you're like, nope, no interest, don't want to see it. I was like, okay. And so I was going to see it, but then just never got around to it. And you can tell from the title, what it does is it takes you to day one of when New York City is invaded by the alien creatures who hunt by sound. And a woman, played by Lupita Nyong'o, fights to try to survive with her cat. And that simple enough premise, but you're like, yeah, but what's different about this film than the other two? Well, the other two took place kind of in the countryside, and this shows you kind of like the moment they hit the earth, and it takes place in a big city. So that's kind of interesting. Good. Lupita Nyong'o, I like her as an actress, and she was really good in this. I think without her, it probably wouldn't have worked as well as it did. Okay. Something else, which I did not know going in, but I looked it up afterwards. The director of this is Michael Sarnowski, who directed Pig.
Oh, okay.
So
did not know that
this is not his first film. This is the second film. And I feel like you can tell that whoever's behind the camera is very assured. Now, Pig was not a horror film. This is not, an action horror film. This is an action film. And for him to be able to do it as well made as it is, I was really pleased that, he's like, okay, he's got two films. This is a second. I thought it was really, really strong. Also in the film, which I didn't even recognize him from, I guess the trailers, and I think you may have pointed it out, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things was in it, and he is really good and plays a completely different, he's not like a heavy metal rocker dude in this. Eddie, I guess was his character.
Eddie from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
He will also be playing Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movie. He's also playing one of the emperors in Gladiator 2.
Awesome.
So he's got a very diverse list of performances coming up. So I believe he could do it because I think he may turn into somebody else who's like, okay, I want to see. Which I liked him in Stranger Things, but I'm not a big fanboy like a lot of people are. After seeing him in this, I'm like, okay, and I think the next film's going to be like, okay, I'm going to watch this guy now because I really like what he's doing. So that was another reason that I like this. Also, I'll say there's a sequence in the subway where the creatures are in pursuit, and there's like a subway river because things are flooding. It's very, very effective. Thought it was really well done. Now, on the other side of that, there's a sequence in a pizza parlor with a magic trick. So nothing to do with creatures, but it's some nice character work. And I'm like, okay, this is good. This is worth people seeing. And a final thing I'll say, it doesn't top the film Perfect Days, their use of the Nina Simone song at the end of the film. But you know what? This is a definite close second. Same song. Needle Drop. I'm Feeling Good, I think is the name. Yeah.
But very, very close second. Needle Drop for that song. So,
all right. So film automatically gets a little bit of a piqued interest for me if it's going to drop in Feeling Good by Nina Simone as a needle drop.
And it is just as perfect, but doesn't involve as much acting with the face like the guy did in Perfect Days. So that's hard to top.
Okay.
But this is definitely, for me, a close second.
All right. Well, you've got my interest up a little bit. Yes, I was very dismissive about this movie because I felt like the Quiet Place films were fine, but I just never really got into. I never cared about the storylines. I never cared about the characters much. I just thought it was just an exercise in let's build dread and suspense movies, and they were mildly effective. I thought I was fine. I was fine with them. Nothing great, but for me. So I really wasn't excited about the idea of this third one, a prequel one. But Lupita Nyong'o, yes, that was interesting to me. Joseph Quinn, interesting to have in there. Now your review has got me like, okay, maybe I should check this out.
And I'll say something else. Somebody who is in this film who I did not expect and has, small part, but still good. And it was nice to see him again. Alex Wolff. He was in Hereditary. And I think I'd maybe seen him once since then, but hadn't seen him in a while. And he's in this and plays kind of a cool role. So that was nice to see Alex Wolff.
Well, good. All right. Well, you've got me now interested.
Now, before this is normally, it's in the news segment, but I do want to say, Alan, I want to read to you what is Michael Sarnowski's next film. Okay?
Okay.
It's called The Death of Robin Hood. The byline thing is a darker reimagining of the classic Robin Hood tale, which will see the character as a battle-worn loner grappling with his past after a life of crime and murder, and who finds himself gravely injured in the hands of a mysterious woman who offers him a chance at salvation. Who's Robin Hood? That would be Hugh Jackman. Who's the mysterious woman? Jodie Comer. So there you go.
Okay.
Which Jodie Comer from The Last Duel.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with that.
Interesting.
Normally don't do period pieces, but that whole idea of flipping kind of a narrative there. Yeah. The Death of Robin Hood doesn't have a release date or anything yet, but yeah. So, and especially after Pig and Quiet Place.
All right. Yeah. No, I'm intrigued as well. That sounds really interesting. Great. Well, thank you for that recommendation, Chris. And something else to add to my watch list that I will not get to anytime soon because of one main reason, and that is because we do have our Foot Candle Film Festival coming up here very, very quickly.
Yes.
Chris, when is the festival? What's going on?
It is going to be September 20th through the 29th. We have lots of different things. We have a film lab where teams can come and over a 60-hour period, they can try to put together a film and enter it into competition. We have an outdoor screening of American Graffiti. But right before that, we have a band that's going to be playing hits from the 50s and 60s. That'll be a fun time. And then the normal film festival stuff. We have films showing narrative films, documentaries, both features and shorts. We are also doing 2 different screenings of some youth international films, which are, geared more towards younger kids to try to get them interested in film. So a lot going on. You can find more about the film festival at footcandlefilmfestival.com. There's also a way to get tickets there. So come out and enjoy it. It should be fun.
All right. We will look forward to seeing everybody there here in Western North Carolina for the Foot Candle Film Festival here at the end of the month. It's going to be a great time. Very exciting. Still lots to do. So we are going to cut this off so we can go work some more on getting prep for that festival. But Chris, if somebody did have some opinions or wanted to dialogue with us, granted, I don't know if we'll be able to respond for a couple weeks.
We may be a little slow.
Give us till October 1st. But if you want to go ahead and queue up any questions or thoughts or comments about tonight's show, you can do that. How can they get a hold of us, Chris?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter at footcandlefilm, Facebook, Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram and Threads. We're just simply Foot Candle Film. We are on Letterboxd where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Actually, on Letterboxd as well, we have a listing of what's going to be playing at this year's film festival as well. It's what's played at previous ones. If you ever want to check that out, do us a favor. Give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends whenever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it could help us reach new listeners, and we'd always appreciate that.
All right. Well, that will wrap it up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to everybody next time. Take care. See you later.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.